Like a little music with your meal, Tuco?
Music? Yes, it's very good. Very good for the digestion.
We are the music makers, and we are the dreamers of dreams.
You know, we're always quickest to doubt people who have a reputation for being honest.
I find your lack of faith disturbing.
Could be a monkey or a orangutan.
A bald monkey? Is he a pig? He sure eats like one.
It's the Al Travis Show, and we've got him on the program with the Senator Mark Koran. Senator, how are you today?
I'm doing very well.
All right. Last time we talked, and I wanted to talk voter fraud, and you said you could do an entire hour on proxy voting, which, as I look into it, it's almost voter fraud in itself, but it's evidently legalized. And I think it'll be worth chatting about. And basically what we're talking about, if I can wrap it up for you, you can dive into it. If you're my representative or my senator and you don't feel like going to the House floor to make a vote, you're still able to vote by proxy. And I don't know if that means remoting in on a Zoom call anymore, or if that means your secretary can run in and make the vote, your assistant. I don't know what that is in Minnesota. But basically you're saying I don't have to go in to do my job at the Capitol, right? To do these votes. Is that what we're talking about?
Yeah. For senators and representatives, they implemented proxy voting outside of emergency, right? Yeah, outside of COVID in 2023, and that's what really stripped all of Minnesota of their rights. And it's
one second at a time, sir. They started with COVID, right? They said that this emergency, we're not going to sit in, and then in 2023, when most of us were pretty much over the COVID thing, they put a law in that says we can still not show up and vote.
No law. It's a policy. It's a rule within the House and the Senate. So you have your rules within your body, but it's structural to the destruction of our system of governance. And everything that we have is guided by the Constitution, right? That's a fairly easy process to follow, and Mason's rules, which is kind of architected discourse. It's brilliant. It really is brilliant, but it is foundational. But it's all predicated on your butt in your seat. It's extraordinarily important when you have tight margins in the House and the Senate, right? It's divided. And in addition to in the Senate, it's 200 votes or 162 votes and one vote. What it truly is designed to do is to guide, believe it or not, many probably don't believe or trust what I'm saying, but it's true, is it guides the legislative process and truly is constraining and to contain it within the will of the voters, right? And meaning if they have a mandate and they have an extraordinary 8-seat majority in the Senate, you can pass some really aggressive legislation. Because you can let your competitive seats, right, the 50-50 seats, you can let them off of a vote and take some really aggressive votes. We haven't been in that situation for a decade in Minnesota. What proxy voting did is essentially granted in the Senate and equally in the House, or in the House and Senate in 23 and 24, a 201-0 voting strength is what it granted them. And people say, oh, it's hard and proxy voting, just a new way we should be voting. No, that robs everybody, the 49.99% of the people, of their voting rights, and the rules to not be present and not be transparent, thus accountable to our voters, is so disgusting. It's the thing I'm literally angry about, because you can go take your lumps, right? They have the trifecta. You can have it. That's power, and that's the way it works. But it's not ultimate power. The proxy voting granted it. They had many of their own members that couldn't face their own peers within their own party or across the aisle while some of those heinous votes occurred. Give you one example, right? The 75 bills that were done in 2023. You look on, I think it was April 21st. It was a Friday in 2023 where they had I called it Transgender Friday. And it was transgender sanctuary state for Minnesota residents. The state would take cause to take your child if you didn't convert them. They would do it for residents outside of the state. And I think it was doctors if they committed felonies, performing illegal activities around this Minnesota licensed them so they could perform those activities in Minnesota. It was a Friday night, 3 bills that night. And just as an example, on the first bill, there's probably, I think it was around 10 senators not present, and that bill passed. Now, that was Republican and Democrat.
Mm-hmm.
By the last bill, there were 22 senators not present at all in the building. And that bill passed. And I think 13 of them were Democrats, 10 of them, 9 and 10 of them were Republicans. Republicans should be there as well. And I think this is an issue for 2026 election. They should have their butts in the seats, because on that thin margin, if the rules were the way they are and you didn't have proxy voting, those finite votes on an amendment and all those maneuvers and machinations that occur, everything is predicated on a vote. And what that does is ensure that the content of the legislation, the quantity of the legislation is moderated by your ability to get 34 butts in seats to pass a bill.
Let me ask you this:
difficult for 5.5 months.
Is there a reason you can be gone? A couple things. On a U.S. level, I know that they buddy back and forth. It's tight on a vote or something, and a congressman has to go home and get a cancer treatment or something. He will contact someone on the other side that he knows and say, "Hey, I have to get this treatment. I can't miss it." And that person might say, "You know what? My daughter's wedding's going on. We'll both miss the weekend and miss the vote together. It doesn't change the numbers." To help each other out. I've heard this go on. Okay, fine. What is it that it takes to get out here? COVID is done. Can I really go to my legislative leadership and say, little too embarrassed to do this in front of others, I'm going to go to my office? Can they be down the hall? I'm going home. I'm going to my district. And then who flips the green or red light on? I mean, somehow it physically has to show how they voted. How does the system work?
What they do is what you just described could happen in Congress, but the reality is you make sure our caucus knows when you're not going to be there, right? There's things you plan for, and there's things that's very difficult, as you just described, while life happens, and it wasn't a oversight, that it's not in our Constitution or any way that you could do the proxy vote. So how it works is, yes, if somebody's gone, what happens if you're the majority, it's certainly more important, right? Your 34th vote to move your agenda forward is, it doesn't change the majority status. What it means is they actually have to reach across the aisle in a bipartisan manner to have a conversation about even opening that day's routine business, regardless of whether you're going to pass a bill. And so everybody talks about, you have Shannon Watson, oh, we got to be more bipartisan. They've destroyed any opportunity to be bipartisan, because it's actually baked into the rules. You just have to reach across the aisle. So how it works then is you come to a vote, and then the vote is they call for a vote, and whatever it is, Al, an amendment, an action, a motion, whatever is, once they call for the vote, whether it's a roll call, you make a roll call. Then if you're a roll call, you do division, you stand up, and all those things should matter. The way it works now, the roll call, you take your roll, and then within about 30 seconds, the president calls out to the Democrats, the majority first, and say, "Hey, who do you have voting remote?" And they start to read off, so and so votes yay, so and so votes nay.
Oh.
It could be 1 to 10. And then they go over to the Republican, say, "Who do you got absent?" And then those votes are recorded by the secretary through the president, and that they didn't.
I don't want to say that
they could be anywhere. Sometimes.
Could they be dead? Here's what I worry about such things. You go home, you're sick, whatever, and there's a big vote. And this is more on the nationwide. You look at some of these 90-year-old people voting.
Right.
They go home.
Now,
they pass. So how do we? So the leadership gets to decide how they voted. There's no. See, at least you have to go you put your voter card in, as I understand it, and then you get to vote and flip the switch up and down. You don't do that here in Minnesota.
There's nothing. All it is somebody's pretending that they've contacted their other members to understand what their vote is. And part of that was true in COVID. We did this dance about, and we called, right? They were in constant contact, because you got votes that go nonstop. I mean, it's rapid fire. And so now it's just a wash. It's within 30 seconds of calling for a vote. They wouldn't even know who it was to call all the members to understand what their voting position would be. Now, proxy voting, the reason they did it, or wanted to steal the power, but Carrie Dietzig was gone for 3/4. It was terrible. She was stuck with an illness. But never have any of those other Democrats, Senator Rest or any of the other ones there, called for proxy voting in their 40 years of existence. And we had illness, death, weddings, funerals, all of those things that occur. And you manage that body. It just means you have to manage it together when the margins are so close that you need somebody from the other side to just do your basic business. It robs and strips our Minnesota and all Minnesota their true voter rights. And now when you're dealing with Shannon Watson, say, oh, this rhetoric and the division is so terrible. Words mean nothing when your actions are completely opposite. Yeah. This proxy voting rips out every single thing. You can play and do the dance of the common cause, all these things. What Shannon's organization is
a majority in the middle,
to try and bring some majority in the middle and to do those things. But when your legislation doesn't reflect at all the average Minnesotan, even the Democrats, they're not proud of it. Most of the Democrats don't know what they passed, and they don't make themselves available to be accountable to even discuss those things. So I'm putting in a constitutional amendment. I think literally every single candidate in Minnesota on the ballot, House, Senate, constitutional offices should ask, will you participate in a government that allows proxy voting and steals undue power because it is constitutional? And I hate constitutional amendments, but this might be foundational to our entire system of governance.
Let me ask you this, because if you just play this down further, as far as you want to go, show how crazy this is, and you can tell Mark Johnson to send me a check for helping him out here. Doesn't he just say to all the senators under him, guys, stay home, stay in your district, I will vote on everything. As soon as they go for something, they'll say, nope, 33 of us vote no. You know what I'm saying? You would never have to show up. Leadership can just do that. Isn't that the ultimate? It'll just be two leaders in a room knocking each other back and forth.
Yep. I mean, and it's not how it works, but you're right. I mean, that's exactly the Democrats have said. I've had many conversations about when vacancies, they want there's a bill out there to just fill the seat with anybody. And it's like, all you just end up with a hollow voting vessel. And they're comfortable with, they would rather have voting based on an election certificate, regardless of the person ever shows up. And the Democrats would be okay with that.
Well, they're for a while okay with a guy who doesn't even live in the district. We'll talk about all that. We've got more coming up. I want just regular people voter fraud. We'll talk about that coming up with Senator Mark Koran.
Hey, Brian, what do you call a lobbyist with a sense of humor?
Me?
Close. Momentum advocacy.
We help clients get real results at the Capitol with strategy, relationships, and just enough charm to make it fun.
From policy wins to media spots, we've got your back.
Nonprofits, businesses, coalitions, we've helped them all.
And we do it with nearly 90 years of combined experience.
Momentum advocacy.
As always, your friends at the Capitol. Learn more about our team at momentum-advocacy.com.
Think about it. Now that school's back in session, how are Minnesota students doing? Not very well. Minnesota ACT scores fell again last year and are the lowest they've been in 10 years. In fact, fewer than half of Minnesota students can either read or do math at grade level. Think about it. We used to brag about our schools. Now we're losing to states like Mississippi. Visit AmericanExperiment.org for more information. Think About It is brought to you by Center of the American Experiment, Minnesota's think tank.
Al Travis Show, the last place you can go and hear all sides. Respectful, thoughtful, and grateful.
Long-winded setup for Senator Mark Koran. Sir, I didn't really think much about my voting and how fair it wasn't. Steve Simon, I've had him on the show. Nice enough guy. Says he does a great job. I don't know. Says he won't give voter rolls to Trump. They're perfect. They're beautiful. Don't worry about it. You don't have to look at them. Okay, maybe just poking a stick from Democrat to Republican. I don't know. Then we see two guys get caught putting together 500 to 600 voter registration cards. They pled guilty in federal court. Some company was paying them to do it, and evidently 99% of their money was coming from the state grants. We paid a company to pay these two knotheads to do this. Mm-hmm. And my thought was, were they paying them by the registration? You get me 10 and you get this much. And then back to, why are we doing that anyway? Is there enough people that cannot figure out the complicated nature of filling out a one-piece of paper telling you where you live and your name, that we need to pay some company to pay these guys to do that? Why is anybody doing it? To me, there's only one reason to have fake people in the rolls. You want to vote with them. Then Steve Simon comes out and says he wants this nationwide voter purge act where you have to prove you're dead and or that you moved before you're taken off the rolls. It would seem to me, sir, we are doing everything we can to make sure the possibility is there. If you die, my family's got to remember to go call Steve and let Simon know that I'm dead so he takes me off the rolls. Minnesota literally does the death certificates. I would have thought in 2025, Al dies, Minnesota fills out the death certificate, they ship one over to Steve Simon. It can't be this hard, and now I'm on the track that thinks we're doing it for a reason. Somebody wants mucky rolls. That gal up in northern Minnesota, mom died. She was a real Trumper, so I went and voted for her. That's all the harder that is? It can't be. It's crazy to me. Your thoughts on real old-fashioned voter fraud?
Al, you just described, it's really simple. When you're fighting to stop the simple verification to ensure only legal residents are on the statewide voter registration database, that's it. And so really what we've left it up to, neutered or watered everything down so much from a voter registration to a simple self-attestation is what we're taking as the trust and verification that you're an eligible citizen without doing the work to verify it. And you can cast your ballot. Yeah, and after the election, we may do some cursory review and say, all right, maybe we won't let them vote next time. But we won't be able to determine that because they've then statutorily made most of the information that we would need to validate. Even we used to be able to validate a lot of these things on our own, right? Mm-hmm. You get death databases and all of those types of things. But we also used to be able to monitor your voter status. Did you move in and out of a voter status? Mm-hmm. If you were a same-day voter registration and your verification came back as failed, did you get listed as a challenged voter? Yeah. If you were, you couldn't do same-day voter registration in a subsequent year because you've never been validated, but you got to vote in that one election. And without that voter registration database, you can't do those things. And they've made it not unavailable since 2010. All the lawsuits have been around that data. Now they've gone further. Inactive voters are now no longer public data. Go ahead, Em.
No, the 1 minute, I just have 1 minute. Yeah, and then we made this law that if anybody who signs up for a driver's license automatically signs up for voter. If you've asked for any services from Minnesota, you're automatic signed up. Does that include illegal immigrants who we did give driver's licenses to?
The initial startup of it certainly proved that thousands of them were automatically registered to vote. They claim that they've been pulled out, but it's the same as voting. We're just supposed to trust Steve Simon that it's good, and they've fixed that problem without any action or proof to prove it, or to really prove the accuracy and the validity of it. So we're just supposed to trust Steve Simon, and that's not good enough.
I think between the fraud and abuse and now this voter stuff, you watch, that's what the conversation is going to be about for the next 6 months until the election, or next 11 months. Sir, thank you for coming on. I always appreciate you being here. Appreciate you taking the time.
Have a great day.
Senator Mark Koran.